Good afternoon and a very warm welcome to you all once again for the third of our seminar series on re-engaging and rebooting your volunteer programs. These have been designed to equip volunteer involving organisations with the tools to navigate this very difficult transition period as we return to what will now be the new normal and as we emerge from the latest COVID lockdown. Today's seminar will be about exploring how to redesign your volunteer programs in line with the national standards. My name is Rachel Rainbird. I am the Director of Sector Engagement here at the Centre for Volunteering. And I begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which this event takes place and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I am in Coogee, which is on Gadigal land, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. I will now hand over to Clint Bertenshaw, Manager of Commonwealth Programs here at the Centre for Volunteering, who will then conduct the seminar. And please feel free to place any questions in the chat and we'll do our best to answer them at the conclusion of the session. So thank you, Clint.
Thanks, Rach, and welcome all. And hopefully you are all starting to find a little bit of relief in coming back to your volunteering programs, coming out of lockdown. For some of you, maybe it's getting back to business as usual. For some of you, you may be sitting there going, this is absolutely one heck of a quagmire that I do not want to tackle until the new year. But whatever your situation is, we're hoping at the centre that these seminars are helping you navigate your way, and just to show that you've got our support along the way, and to also show that we're on top of things as well and keeping abreast of the changes and trying to make life as easy as possible for you. Okay, so in today's seminar, we're going to look at redesigning your volunteer programs. In the last seminar, we actually looked at what it takes to get back to volunteering post-lockdown restrictions. And we went through the 6-step process that is available on our COVID-19 portal over on the Centre for Volunteering's website. Today, we're going to actually spend a little more time focusing in on step 4 in that 6-step guide, which will help you take a look at your programs and the roles within them, and actually consider what you could do to give it a bit of a spring clean, if you will, and set yourself up for success should we, unfortunately, find ourselves in another lockdown or in a similar sort of restricted working situation that we have been on and off for the last couple of years. Today we're going to take a look at step 4, as I said, and really delve into that with your mindset of review, rethink and redesign. We're going to look at then how we could build our workforce through inclusion and diversity and what we might need to do to our roles to be more inclusive and diverse. And then we're going to take a look at virtual volunteering. So when was the last time you really took a look at your volunteer roles and program? I speak to a lot of different volunteer involving organisations, and what I do find is sometimes there are roles that have just always been that way. There's nothing wrong with that, nothing at all. But what you tend to find is those roles have been written in such a way that may have suited the requirements way back when. But do they actually suit your requirements now? And in saying that, do you have requirements that are really not necessary? A common one I come across is roles where it's a requirement for the people who do those roles to have a driver's license. However, they're never going to get behind the steering wheel of a car. Or maybe there is a weight, they need to be able to lift a certain weight, yet the heaviest thing they're going to lift is a pen and paper. Are these requirements really still required? Were they potentially put into the roles way back when the role was first conceived? But over time, changes have occurred organically or by decision, and now these requirements are no longer needed. And potentially by keeping them there, you're actually creating a barrier to having more volunteers take up that work. Barriers are quite often created when we don't take the time to constantly review the roles and our volunteer programs that we have. And this is not to say that, you need to be doing this every other month, but post lockdown restrictions, post any sort of major business disruptive type scenario, this is a really good time to sit there and take a look at our roles and programs and run it through the lens of, do they still suit and do the requirements matter today? And most importantly, on the back of all this, if we are going to do a spring clean of sorts, could your volunteer programs continue if a lockdown or similar was to occur again? We've just found ourselves in a situation I'm sure no one was expecting they would ever face. And to the credit of many, most organisations have done really well to continue some form of volunteering activity during this time. But as we are heading into these restrictions being lifted, potentially uncertain time, we want to make sure that we take this opportunity to set ourselves up for success should another lockdown occur, or heaven forbid down the track, another crisis occur. Now, some statistics for you from the State of Volunteering report. Volunteers are saying that they want more flexibility in their volunteering roles. This is important to note because at the moment, we are potentially facing a decrease in the number of volunteers that we have available to us. But that's not to say that people do not want to volunteer. There are many volunteers and people willing to volunteer who would do so if the arrangements were far more flexible. A common cry, as you will see here, is that the volunteers who will potentially take this up would like it to be done online or from home. They maybe work 9-to-5 jobs or similar, have young families, can't necessarily get down to a set location or a fixed office or wherever. But that doesn't mean they don't want to volunteer. They just like that flexibility to be done from home. People want to volunteer occasional rather than regular hours. Again, these are working people or people who have got full-time study or people who maybe are primary caregivers for children or other loved ones within the family. And their time they're just not available for a 9-to-5 or some variance of that shift during the working day. Or maybe they can do a couple hours here during the day and a couple hours there during the day, and they want that flexibility to somewhat drop in and drop out as they need to suit their timetables. Yet, quite often we have in our volunteer programs rigid guidelines that say you need to be able to deliver a full shift, whatever that shift may be, that it needs to be during the volunteer involving organisations' general business hours, whatever they may be. I myself volunteer for a community radio station down here in Hobart, and the beauty was for this station, we have already got quite a flexible arrangement with many of our volunteers because we are located on the university and we are a youth radio station, so we attract a lot of university students. But for someone like myself who works full-time, 9-to-5, Monday to Friday, I'm able to still get involved because of this flexibility that's there. And they don't limit it just to the uni students. It's available to all the volunteers. Sure, they have core business hours where the station is somewhat occupied with staff, or our station manager will actually go in on 2 set days to ensure that certain mission critical business activities are able to continue. But for the most part, the volunteers know what they need to do, and they're able to get these done within their own time. Now, for some, it requires a little more thinking around how this will work, because it may need to be that things are done at a certain time to meet radio programming, or being available to other members of the team, or even so that there isn't that conflict where 2 people are working on the same thing at the same time. But for most part, it works really well. And what was really cool was, because this was already in place, when the full COVID lockdown occurred last year, for the most part, the business was able to still keep going. And there were a few things that had to be done a little differently, such as our general radio programming for the shows who would always come into the station to perform them live. They did have to record from home and the like. But for the majority of the core day-to-day activities required to keep the station running, the flexibility that we were already used to meant that we had a lot of the processes and procedures in place to carry on as usual. And for a large period of time, we weren't able to even get on site because of the restrictions imposed by the university. This was critical for us, and it really had demonstrated to me personally just how invaluable flexibility as a volunteer is. I want to give my time. My motivations to give back to the community and to help others are strong. But if I had to try to fit that into a specific time of the day, unfortunately, with a young family, with work commitments and other commitments, it wouldn't be possible, and I wouldn't be able to volunteer. As you go through looking at your roles, think about what roles could be made more flexible by taking out the requirements for set shifts, by taking out some of the requirements that may just not be a real requirement anymore. Which then leads me into inclusion and diversity. A lot of barriers, as I mentioned before, have been included because roles and programs were devised quite some time ago, and they've just sat there, and it's been the way they have been for ages. No one's really ever dusted them off, taken a bit of a look, questioned why something is that way. And that then potentially limits the type of volunteers you can actually come and have volunteer at your organisation. Maybe due to physical limitations, mental health limitations, maybe just the fact that there is something in your roles that's a little bit off-putting. If you can review these with the mindset of becoming a little more inclusive and diverse, you may actually find you open yourself up to a larger pool of volunteers. Take the time to consider restructuring your volunteer programs to be more inclusive and diverse. If you need assistance with this, register for the Inclusive Volunteering Program offered by the Centre. It's free of charge, and we can actually provide you with training and support around how to be more inclusive and diverse. We can even provide you with the support of taking a look at your programs or your roles and providing advice on how you may become more open to a greater volunteer workforce. You will gain a larger pool of volunteers organically if you go through this process. Okay, I've spent some time now talking about the flexibility of volunteering and people wanting to volunteer. I really want to delve into virtual volunteering a little bit further. COVID-19 actually did something which is, well, as bad as it was, from a technical standpoint, it actually pushed us forward by about 10 years, if you ask me. As a tech nerd, I've seen us literally leap forward by about 10 years. This is fantastic. And it's fantastic because we've got the technology to work from so many different locations. As I mentioned before, I'm actually down in Hobart, yet I work for the Centre for Volunteering. And for most part, unless of course I mention it to people, no one would even know that I am down here. It was actually really quite useful during the lockdowns because I was able to still function perfectly normal without any concern around, oh, I've got this at the office or that's at the office and can I still carry on? I was able to be at my little office each day. And even when we had a snap lockdown down here for about 3 days, I was still able to access files and get access to my emails and whatnot remotely. This is the world we live in now. Everything is mobile. If you have internet connectivity, if you have a reasonably, decent mobile device, be it a smartphone or a tablet, you're going to be able to operate in most cases pretty well. And it's only when you've got to do the physical that there may be a concern. So when you think about that, how many roles do you have? How much of your volunteer program is made up of needing people to be physically on site, doing something that requires physical activity? Really think about that. Then have a think about, what are people doing on a day-to-day basis? Are they just picking up the phone and calling people? Are they entering data into a database, a spreadsheet, some other form of software? Are they doing any other activity that simply has them in front of some kind of computer? Maybe doing something on a piece of software that may even be in the cloud or online. And if you can say, yes, I've got a lot of that in my workplace, then you can really start to think about, well, why are people coming in to this office? Why are people coming on site? Now, again, it does make it very hard to do virtual volunteering if you have to physically do something. But you could also restructure the role so that a limited number are on site. And for the most part, some of the administration that goes on behind the physical activity is being done, if not at the same time behind the scenes, at other times of the day behind the scenes. Virtual volunteering also allows people to do it from anywhere, not just home. This is important. I make the decision each day to come down to a co-working space because I like to work from this space and I find that it's a little bit more conducive to creativity and to productivity than being at home. It also means that I can separate that mindset from work to home life. Some people may find that they are most productive working from a library or working from a cafe. And if all they're doing is importing stuff into a spreadsheet or a database or writing and reviewing documents or doing research, all very easy to do remote roles, then if they can do it from anywhere due to mobile data, Wi-Fi, why not? Why not allow them to do this activity where they're comfortable, where you may find they're actually more productive, and where they can fit it into their day? Maybe it's someone who wants to drop the kids off at school in the morning, run a couple of errands, and then sit down at the local cafe, taking a load off and doing a bit of research because they're passionate about it. Funnily enough, it stops becoming work. It actually becomes fun. It becomes a passion project. And you get more out of them because they're now not stressed. You may also find that in allowing people to work from a location that isn't a fixed location, you no longer need to worry about those overheads. A lot of organisations now are making the decision to downsize their offices or to potentially go 100% mobile and have virtual offices, or have utilising virtual reception services, so they've got a central location for calls and mail, but everyone's working from wherever they like. Now, there are obviously some considerations you need to make around things like IT security, and I'm not going to go so much into that as much as to say you would need to have conversations with your boards of management, with your IT people, to ensure that things are set up securely, safely, and with minimal risk to the organisation. But there are also a range of software out there that will enable people to work without actually needing to get onto company servers, without needing people to get into the organisation's IT infrastructure, and still share the work that they're doing. Cloud-based storage solutions like Dropbox, OneDrive, Google Drive, using cloud-based document solutions like Microsoft Office Online, Google Docs. They could be doing all this off from your organisation's IT structure, developing it, doing whatever needs to be done, potentially sharing via email, then sending it back to a contact at the organisation to store it on organisation servers, file servers, whatever the case may be. Don't let the idea of security that be a limitation. Just keep it in mind. And to help you out with all of this, because it's all well and good that I say, yeah, we need to go for virtual volunteering. Yay, let's all be flexible. You'll get more volunteers. Go for it. There's actually a fact sheet you can download from the COVID-19 portal. Tips for optimizing virtual volunteering. And I highly recommend you pull that down, take a bit of a look, and see if you can use that to help review, rethink, and revise or redesign your volunteer programs and roles. Okay, this is a moment I've been waiting for. This is where, as someone who used to love watching Steve Jobs from Apple perform his keynote, I get to have my one more thing. Today, available to you, is our Volunteer Management Handbook. This is something we've been working on behind the scenes, and version 1 is ready for you right now over at the Centre for Volunteering's website. Under our resources, you'll see that we've got the Volunteer Management Handbook, and in a moment I'll give you a demonstration of that. We welcome feedback and suggestions for future content and inclusions. This is not a one and done project. I'm going to be living with this for quite some time. I'm sure by the time I've seen it grown fully, I'll have just about supported it through college. It's 100% online. It's available anywhere with an internet connection. I've actually tested it out on my mobile phone and it reads really quite nice. And the purpose of this is to become almost like the Wikipedia of volunteer management, if you will, for anyone who is a volunteer manager or coordinator, someone who's aspiring to be, or anyone who just wants that little bit more knowledge beyond just showing up and volunteering. This is a great resource that we're going to continually add to over time. As I say, we're only at version 1 right now. You'll already see when you go across there, there's a couple of tiles that say coming soon for additional modules that are coming a little later on. But for the most part, some of the bare brass knuckles of volunteer management are already there, with customizable templates available for you to download, with videos, with all sorts of hints and tips and best practices, all aligned to the national standards for volunteering. All right, so taking a bit of a look now at our website, if we head over to resources, Volunteer Management Handbook, it'll take you to our landing page. As you can see, we've got a link to provide feedback, And what we're doing is, if you provide feedback for any immediate corrections that are needed, be it that maybe there's something that's broken or maybe there is something that's factually incorrect. And look, we've had a lot of our staff review this already, but things do slip through the cracks. Please head through. There's just an online form that you can fill out. Let me just show you that. And you'll see that you can choose whether there's a correction required, suggested inclusion, broken functionality, or general feedback. You've got the ability to upload files if you want to take some screenshots to show. And these will all come through to myself to either action immediately or to place on the roadmap for subsequent releases. And there's no silly suggestions. Send it to us. If there's a template you want or a document that you're like, it'd be really good if I already had that, so I just have to customize it for our organization, make the suggestion. We'll take a look at it. All right, so once you're on here, you can click on Launch Handbook. And in most cases, for the first time you go across, it will take you to our learner management system, where you'll just need to click on Login as Guest to launch the handbook. And you'll see it's all laid out to be very much point and click in a tile menu-driven type format. If we go to the first one, Understanding Volunteering, you just click on View, and you can see we cover off a lot of the fundamentals of what volunteering is. And we've got supplementary resources that you can click on and view. Large amounts of text are broken down so that it's not so daunting, particularly if you are reading it on a small screen. And you can download things like the National Standards for Volunteer Involvement. If you go into things like the Volunteer Management Cycle, you'll see it's got a bit of a sub-menu there that takes you through the Volunteer Management Cycle, a few key parts of volunteer management that we've identified. There are some variations out there in the volunteering world, but these four seem to cover off the primary stages of a volunteer. Development of the program will take you through planning and core areas of a great volunteer program. And as you go through, you'll see we've got templates that you can click on and download. And if we get one up now, you'll see that there's a lot of things that can be tailored, such as being able to change the header and put your own organization's logo and name, text that can be wiped out and replaced with text that suits your organization. And being that they're Word documents, they're all customizable. I mean, you can completely remove the whole lot. But things that are important to keep in a particular template, particular document, we've kept in standard text. And we'll continually add to these as time goes. For some, we've either linked to or created our own small videos to help make things just that little bit more engaging. And even broken down text, like for things like recognition days, where someone could come along, take note of what it is, and if need be, maybe even head off and quickly pop that into their calendar or diary. And you'll see that we've also got some information in here on inclusion and diversity. And again, we've got videos and the like to help making it a little more engaging. Now, it's timely that we're releasing this because if you take the time to review your programs and you're kind of not too sure where to go, or you want to know if what you're doing is aligned to best practices, head over to the handbook and you might find that it'll help you out along the way. So again, we're really excited to be launching this. It is available right now. You can all get on there, and hopefully you can utilize it as you go to redesign your volunteer programs. I'd like to thank you all for taking the time to attend the seminar today. We've actually got some upcoming seminars that I highly recommend you check out. Seminar 4, Managing Challenging Conversations. This is going to be with Carrie Wallace. Geez, I'm tripping up on my words here, from Enlighten You Solutions. And she'll take you through having difficult conversations, most notably with conversations around COVID-19 and mandatory vaccinations. That's on the 23rd of November between 10 till 12. We've also got Volunteer Engagement and Recruitment During Lockdown 2021, which is being delivered by Rebecca and Chelsea from Gig Buddy Sydney, and they're going to be talking about how they survived and thrived through the COVID-19 pandemic. Again, really great opportunity to hear from other organisations within the sector and potentially pick up some hints and tips. That's on the 25th of November from 3 till 4. So I highly recommend you heading over to our events page and registering for those.